Virtual RC Racing, The Inside Story. Episode 4, Tires. Round and black ones is not good enough for a racing sim. My name is Peter Barefoots. I remember Ronnie Tunn was once asked by one of the British RC racers what tires he was using. Ronnie said, round and black ones. Typical Ronnie. Of course, a vast underestimation of the importance and complexity of tires. In the automotive industry, it has taken many years to come up with accurate tire model physics, and this process has surely been accelerated by developments in Formula One. Tires play such an important role in F1, and in fact all classes of racing. Before an F1 race, simulator tests have become a critical part of the preparation of F1 teams for a particular track, and especially during a race weekend. The physics models used for F1 are developed in close collaboration with tire manufacturer Pirelli, and I would not be amazed if all teams use the same tire physics. But what is the situation in the RC industry? RC tire manufacturers don't have the means nor the knowledge to set up a serious tire testing development program. For RC tire manufacturers, it is very much development by trial and error. You try a certain rubber compound, test it on a track, take lap times, and ask the driver how it feels. Very practical trial and error development and direct racer feedback. But to develop a RC racing sim, you need to somehow create a physics model that delivers a very precise feel to the racer on how the tire performs under all circumstances. And it is widely understood by tire experts that with tires nothing is linear, meaning that when you double the load, the actual traction forces don't double but moves along a certain curve depending on the construction of the tire. To give just one simple example, these curves determine very much how the car feels. Now think of different camber and caster angles, slip angles, lateral and longitudinal traction, and try to get the right feel under all conditions. Why are tires so complex? Because there are just so many variables. Rubber compound, grip factor, surface structures, temperature effects, driving forces, deformation of the contact surface, deformation of sidewall, not so much with foam tires, tire wear factor, camber angle, changing the contact path, toe in and out changes, steering angle, slip angle, caster angle changes. There are probably a lot more variables. I am not an expert in this field by no means, but this is what I learned from our physics wizard Todd "Doc" Wasson while he was developing the tire physics. It all started with foam tires because that is what was used on 1.8 and 1.10 nitro cars which we developed for VRC version 3. Todd made it clear that each type of tire would need its own tire model parameters, rubber tires for 110 electric and rubber tires for off-road cars. Todd had already some very good understanding of tire physics models, but what data to work with, what to compare with? We had data logger data with acceleration curves and cornering speed with different tire compounds, from which we could calculate some basic grip data. But as already explained earlier, tires don't work in a linear way. The only way to find out was to set up a tire testing project. And here is yet another mysterious coincidence in our quest to develop realistic physics for VRC V3. Todd lived in St. Paul, Minnesota, just a big city, one of thousands in the U.S., in one of 50 states in the U.S., right? Before he came to work on the VRC project, Todd had already established some contacts with a certain Doug Millikan, who is considered to be the authority in racing car vehicle dynamic science. Just Google his name, and you will find out. Doug Millikan lived somewhere in the middle of the U.S. and had decided to move to St. Paul, of all places. And somehow Todd found out about this incredible coincidence. Todd contacted Doug about the VRC Physics Engine project, and that he was about to start a tire testing project to obtain data from these little foam tires for model RC cars. Doug had probably never seen an RC car before, but apparently was interested in the project. Todd and Doug met and had long discussions on how to approach the testing project. It became clear to Todd that the only way to gather realistic data was to build a miniature version of a real tire testing rig or machine, as used for full-scale tires. The principles are of course very much the same. Measure the longitudinal, forward and lateral sideward. Forces under many different wheel and steering angles, tire loads and tire speeds. This is easier said than done. Todd designed the test rig, we engineered and manufactured it at Serpent and then sent it over to the U.S. Todd added the load sensors to measure all these forces and wrote the software to capture and analyze the data. If I remember well, Doug Millikan was also involved in this process. The longitudinal measurements were dropped as it was too complex to measure accurately because foam tires are so small and relatively stiff compared to rubber tires. Todd had to cope with issues like jitter, which he had to filter out of the data. We sent loads of different foam tires, compounds, shore hardness, diameters, front tires and rears, and in a later stage rubber tires for 110 electric cars. Todd and Doug did numerous tests and fine-tuned the testing rig to finally produce the data needed to start modeling the tires. Without this data, it would not have been possible to make the virtual cars behave like real RC cars. After all the forces between the track surface and car go through the tires. These forces affect the suspension, roll, pitch, yaw, the chassis movement, the shock absorbers and anti-roll or sway bars to resist the chassis movements, transfer forces from one side to the other and from front to rear and back. Vehicle dynamics at work. I owe Todd and Doug Millikan a massive thanks for doing all this essential research on the tires. Believe me, without it, VRC would never have become such a realistic RC racing sim. How realistic? Well, it can and will never be 100%. It is, after all, a simulation of reality, and reality is extremely complex, as we all know, but we have come close with VRC, very close. And what about feel? In the next episode, I will zoom in a bit more on the actual tire physics model Todd created, and with what sort of variables, parameters, we work with. And remember, the sim software must calculate 350 times per second, and for 112 even 500 times per second, the results of all these forces, which determines how the car behaves on the track and feels. Feel is an essential factor in RC racing. Kind of strange, of course, as you can't feel anything. It is the translation of the visual input or feedback from the screen into your brain which creates that feel. It is what you expect to happen, just like what you expect from a real RC car. This meant a totally new challenge for Todd. He had never seen or driven a 1.8 nitro car before, and then to ask him to understand feel. The tire physics model and developing that all-important feel is next. Thanks for watching.